Hello, welcome to yoga. I'm a little cold today, so we're gonna do some warming up type moves, and I'm gonna hug my tea here for a minute. um, let's start with our pranayama, our breathing or energetic exercise, and we'll do that today with a little bit of movement. We'll take the hands palms up. Breathe in. Palms down, exhale. Breathe in and up. Down and exhale. And you might start to notice a natural lifting and lowering of the hands. Relaxing the shoulders. And let the hands come to your sides comfortably. We're going to warm up the neck. We'll lift one ear and then the other. Back and forth. Alrighty, go ahead and roll those shoulders. Let's do one after the other. Let it take your rib cage with it. And then just take the rib cage. Other direction. And take one arm up and over. We're going to bend the elbow like you're going to pat yourself on the back. And the other side. And let it go. Let's take those knees up in front of us. We'll drop them left and right to warm up the hips. Low back. And let's bring those knees up in front, our hands behind. We're going to warm up the hands. So pad the floor in different ways. Stretch into those wrists and fingers. Stretch into the shoulders and chest. And then we will lift our tail. Press down through the hands and feet. Squeeze the buttocks. And down. Lift your heart. Lift your hands and feet. You can make this whatever boat you would like it to be. And then come back to our tabletop. Boat. And table. Boat. And table. Bring yourself back to sitting cross-legged, one ankle in front of the other. Lengthen out the spine and tip forward over your lap. Like I said, my hips are cold, so I'm going to put a little bit of a gentle sway in here, lubricating the joints with synovial fluids. Also, it's giving my low back a chance to wake up and warm up. We've had a beautiful couple of days, and then last night it turned cold and rainy. Excellent. Whichever shin is in front, we're going to take that around back. And I've got my back knee kind of bent, but it's way back there. So I'm definitely pointed over my front leg. I'm going to lean back. So I'm still facing my front leg, but I'm leaning back and I'm getting a lot of hip flexor. I'm getting a lot of inner thigh, a little bit of quadriceps in there. And I'm even getting some obliques. All right, go ahead and lean all the way forward so that we're getting some glutes. You might feel it in your thigh as well if you're more tight there. Bring it on up. We're going to switch legs. Put the leg that was in front, it's going to stay in front. Head forward over your lap. So this should be the second side for this move. And take that front leg behind now. Again, it's going way back there, but it is bent. I'm looking at my front knee, but I'm leaning back. forward. And bring yourself up to all fours. When you get there, we'll do some cat-cow. So that's pushing up to cat, arching and lifting into cow. And press back onto the balls of your feet. We're just gonna press for now. So really stretching my toes. I can feel it in my soleus. That's the muscle that goes underneath of the calves. And go ahead and press back onto your feet now. And if you can, we'll take a little balance there. Lifting, opening the chest. And then let's take our feet a little wider. Maybe as wide as your mat, no wider than that though. So mine are just a little wider than my hips. And I'm gonna sink back onto my heels. So I have to get my knees wider than my rib cage so that my rib cage can balance on right in between. Now, if you don't have enough hip flexibility or ankle flexibility to do this yet, that's okay. You can put your ankles on a little something if it's the ankles that are the issue. And you can reach your arms forward to help you balance if it's the hips being the issue. Because if your hips aren't flexible enough, you'll be back here and you'll need that extra weight forward to keep you from falling over backwards. Press down through your feet to lift the tail. If your heels are on something, go ahead and leave them there because we're going to go right back to this in a moment. Come back down. There's my knees talking to you. Let's do that again. Up. And down. And we're going to go a little side to side. So I'm going to push all my weight onto one foot. And this leg over here is really just holding the leg's weight, none of my torso's weight. So I'm going to do that first by trying to keep my heel on the ground. So if you're a heel on the ground person, stay there for now. And then the other side. So my back foot is really only holding that leg's weight, none of my torso's weight. Back over to the first one, and this time I'm going to let myself come up on the ball of the foot. And the other leg is going to stretch out to the side. I can play with a little balance here. And then I'm going to keep my hips as low as possible as I take this over to the other side. Back to the center. We're going to hang out right here. We've got this wide squat now. I need to rotate because one of my feet is on the slippery floor. All right. So we've got our feet wide, and I'm going to think about dropping my hips right down the middle while keeping my knees in line with my toes. But since that's challenging for me, I'm using my forearms, my elbows to help encourage my knees out wide. And then lengthen the legs. We've got a wide leg forward fold. Back out to your squat, drop the hips, press out the knees. Maybe you don't need this support of the arms pressing your knees out. You can come up. Press down through the feet, will all come up. There we go, my feet are out at diagonals. Let's give a little stretch, tucking the tail under, pressing the pelvis under and forward. Perfect. I'm going to scooch my heels in just a little bit more so that I can come into a more comfortable squat stance here. Bring the hands to Anjali Mudra, heart space here. This is called horse pose. I've got ears over shoulders, over hips. Press down through the feet, stretch the legs long, arms go up and out. 5-pointed star. Back down to horse. Up and out, 5-pointed star. Bring it down one more time. Fold forward. Take your wide leg forward fold. Reach on over and give your right leg a bit of a hug. Get cozy with it. And then we're going to completely pivot towards that right foot. Okay, so both my back toes and my front toes are going in the same direction. Pyramid pose here. Bend into low lunge. Front knees bent, back knees straight and lifting. This is our first deep stretch in this position, so give it a moment. There we go. Now press down into the front foot to lift your hands either to the knee or to the sky. Lengthen the leg. Pivot to the side. Drop it forward. Get on cozy with the left leg. Pivot towards the left side, both sets of toes pointing to your left. Pyramid pose. Bend into that knee, low lunge. And lift to medium or high lunge. Straighten out that front leg. Pivot on over. Nice. Heel toe your feet back in towards each other just enough that you can get back in your horse stance. And instead of horse, we're going to do goddess. So it's the same legs, but we're going to open the elbows in opposite directions and hold these giant platters in our hands. Now I want you to play with your toes. We're going to lift one heel and then the other. Back and forth. Nice. Stretch up, 5-pointed star. Pivot your right toes out to the right. Notice how my hip had to drop. And I'm going to let my right arm trace on down my leg for a triangle pose. The spine is long here. So if you have to round your spine to reach further, don't worry about reaching that far. Instead, press your hips back so the spine is straight and only go down as far as it's straight. Once you start leaning, you've gone just a little bit too far. Keep it all about the hips shifting. Lots of strength down through the front leg here to press you all the way back up. Arms along the horizon. All right, let's come back to the middle, drop back into those, that kind of athletic stance legs. Open up to goddess pose. And this time, instead of just lifting our heel, I want you to think of lifting your hip too. Heel and hip. So the hip is lifting from these muscles here, squeezing it up. So if the heel is getting in your way and making it complicated, you can just do the hip too. And then once we've got that hip up there, I want you to bring the armpit down to it. And take it back up. Other side, we're gonna play with lifting just the hip. Use these muscles. Lift the hip. Maybe even without the toe, lift the hip so you're sure that you're getting these engaged. Once that hip is lifted, drop down the armpit towards it. Back to the center. Lengthen out those legs, 5-pointed star. Rotate the left leg out and drop the left hip. Triangle pose over here. Now, if you want this to be less about flexibility and more about strength, by all means, do not put weight on that hand. And now all my core is having to work to hold me in this position. Press down through that left leg to lift you all the way back up, arms along the horizon. And goddess pose. All right, we're going to crunch and crunch, crunch, and crunch. I'm starting to feel not only a crunch over in this spot, but I'm also feeling a stretch on the opposite side, back and forth. Lifting the hip. Let it go. Lengthen those legs. We're going to fold forward. And let it go. Let's come back down to the mat. We're going to come down to our bellies. Forearms, Sphinx pose. So I'm pressing down with my elbows and pulling back. So we'll see those shoulders pull back, and notice how my head gets a little bit higher. I'm lifting up, projecting my heart forwards. Now I'm gonna loosen my glutes because they're trying to like squeeze, give me a wedgie back there. I'm gonna loosen those up. And just think about projecting that heart forward. I can think about rolling my shoulder blades around behind it to press it forward. And then I'm gonna hang. I'm gonna let the weight of my body let go, let my head go. So because my elbows are under my shoulders, I'm not completely falling on the floor, but my torso, all the energy is just collapsing downwards, and my spine is hanging between my shoulder blades. Press back down through the elbows. Press forward through the heart. Feel those shoulder blades wrap around the back of the heart and try to help it press forwards. Release the glutes. And relax. Let the whole upper body hang between the shoulders. All right. Let yourself get comfortable with the upper body down here on the floor, whatever that looks like. And we're going to think about pressing our tail down towards our heels. I'm going to bring my feet all the way together. My kneecaps are pointing downwards. And I'm going to lift one leg. And I'm going to check in to see, is that lift happening from the hamstring, glutes, a little bit of lower back, or is it happening from pressing my other leg into the floor? Hopefully, I'm lifting rather than the other leg pressing down. And then let's switch sides. Lift. Feel the back of the body pulling upwards. You might notice that your leg wants to swing out wide. Try to keep it right in line with the rest of your spine. And let it go. Let's do them together. Up. So not as much of my leg is coming off the floor now. That's okay. But I'm not bending my knees. And down. Let's do left. And right. And both. Down. Right. And left. And both. And down. Excellent. Reach on back with your left hand for your left foot. So we get to bend the knee now. And we can play in the beginning just stretching that quadricep. How close can your heel get to your tushy? Notice again, if your leg tried to swing out wide, that's letting you know that you're trying to get away from a stretch you really need. Try to pull those knees back to each other. If your hand and foot don't meet, I encourage you to try a yoga strap, a belt, dish towel, whatever works to help extend your reach so that you can gently be pulling that foot towards you. All right, now with that foot secured by your hand or your prop, we're going to press the foot away. Look at my shoulder. See how it pulls up and back? And then if I want to continue trying to push that foot away, it ends up lifting my knee off the ground. If you're on a hard floor, you might feel the front of your pelvis digging into it about now. And let that go. Let the leg go. Go ahead and wiggle that out. No hamstring cramps needed. And we'll take the other side. Stretch the quadricep. Just like before, we'll try to keep the knees close together. And as you guys have probably heard throughout class, my knees snap, crackle, and pop. So sometimes if I'm really closing this knee, it just doesn't feel right. It's not lined up properly. So I have to kind of straighten it, wiggle it, bring it back again, and then chances are it's in the right spot now. So that can happen with your hips as well. There are a few poses that can pinch, you get a nerve in there. You just gotta kind of undo, wiggle around, try again. All right, let's secure that foot and press it away. Feel how it pulls that shoulder away. And then keep on pushing. Maybe your knee comes off the ground. My foot is still really, really trying to get away. And my arm is not doing the lifting. That's not where the work comes from. The work comes from the leg. It's like a kite. The wind is trying to push that kite up and away. And the string, i.e. your arm, is what's keeping it tethered. And let it go. All right, go ahead and lengthen out, wiggle that leg. Wiggle the hips too. In fact, let's go ahead and take our hands under our armpits. And we're going to use those same muscles that we did on our Sphinx pose when we were on our forearms. We're going to use our back muscles to lift. Not using my hands, not using my arms. Now I'll add my hands to it, opening the chest even more as I press back. And I'm going to take it to child's pose, hips to heels. Let's take the arms on over to one side. And the other side. Back to the center. We're going to walk our hands forward. It's going to make our tail lift up in the air. Let your heart melt down towards the floor. Shift your weight over your elbows and we'll come back to Sphinx. Let yourself hang. And we're going to go to wheel pose, upward facing bow pose. So we're going to put those two legs together. So reach on back and grab for both of your ankles. If that's not accessible to you, do one leg and I'll tell you when to switch to the other one. So remember, we want these legs pretty close together, probably about hip width apart. And we're going to start pushing the knees away. And since we've got both sides, we can really see that dramatic chest lift on this one. And the more we try to press those feet away from us, the more your knees come off the ground. And yes, the more the front of your pelvis digs into the floor if that's a hard floor. So later on when you brush across your hips and you realize there's a bruise there, sorry about that. Switch sides if you're doing one side. You can take a quick break and lift back up if you're doing double. And let it go. Keep the knees bent, wiggle the ankles, and windshield wiper them left and right. roll on over to your back. All right, we have our knees up. I'm going to take my right heel to the ceiling, then out to the side. Bend the knee, set it on the other thigh. Bring the whole lap up to me and let gravity pull my shoulder blades down to the floor, which pulls my lap in even closer. And let it go. Both feet on the ground. We're going to take our left heel to the ceiling. Out to the side. Bend the knee, set the ankle on the other leg. Pull the whole lap up. And let it go. We're going to take both legs over to one side. I'm going to go away from the camera to start so you can see the fancy thing we're going to do with it. So you've got both legs over. Mine is to my left. I'm going to take my top leg, which is my right leg, stretch it out that way. And then I'm going to reach back and see if I can grab my bottom foot. So I'm getting some hip flexor and or quadricep on the bottom leg, and I'm getting my T-band, I'm getting gluteus minimus and hamstrings, and if I flex my foot, some calves on my right leg. This is called cat with its tail. Let that go. We'll switch to the other side. My knees are both going to go over to the right. Top leg stretches out long. I like to grab onto it. And I'm going to see if I can get that bottom foot too. So my fingers are having to do some work here to hold on to these limbs. But the rest of my body can really relax into gravity, letting my shoulder blades come down to the mat. My head is heavy. Letting my hips sink down into the floor. And the legs just get to be held by my hands. and let it go. Take any last move or stretch that would feel good to you and your body. I'm going to stretch out these fingers because they got a little cramped up holding on to my legs. And then settle in for your Shavasana, your relaxation pose, resting on the floor. So Shavasana translates into corpse pose. At least that's how we generally translate it. Because you are resting here as still and as quiet as a corpse. And minus your breathing, the stillness is not only physical, it's mental. So we allow ourselves to rest our mind in a quiet space. One of the common places to rest your mind is if you were to close your eyes, imagine seeing what's right in front of your forehead, as if you could look at the back side of your forehead. Imagine it stretched out there like a movie screen. And this movie is very artistic in that it tends to be shapes that lightly move across the screen like clouds. And we can sit here and watch them completely detached. We have no desire for them to be different than they are. Resting our head heavy